Hello and welcome to day 14 of our Lent reflections, a journey through the Gospels towards Easter. And today we carry on from the story that we had yesterday from Mark's Gospel, but we carry on from the perspective of Matthew as we look at the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verses 15 to 35. This is quite a heavy one, to be honest with you, but there's some really good things to get out of it, so let's have a look at it and see what it says. So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the roof of his house go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to get his cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath, for then there will be a great distress, unequalled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equalled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, "Look, here is the Christ," or "There he is," do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and miracles to deceive even the elect, if that were possible. See, I have told you ahead of time. So if anyone tells you, "There he is out in the desert," do not go out, or "Here he is in the inner rooms," do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the nations of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and with great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that it is near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Yeah, little bit of a tricky one, that one, isn't it? As I said, it's a follow-on from yesterday's, and yesterday's reading was seemingly predominantly about the destruction of the temple and the siege of Jerusalem in AD 70. And certainly a lot of this is as well, but it's really doing that to presage the idea of the end times, what some people would call the Armageddon, but that's not really the best word for it. But one of the biggest things to take out of this is be ready. Like we had in the Cubs and the Scouts, the motto, be prepared. You have to be prepared for whatever it is that God's doing. You have to be prepared to see the signs of what it is that God is doing. You have to be prepared to drop everything and follow what God is doing at a moment's notice. You have to be prepared for people pretending that they know what God is doing and seeing through that. And it's all very difficult. It's not the easiest thing. And the way in which we do it is by study of the Bible. It's by prayer and connecting ourselves to God, listening to his voice, getting to know his voice as it speaks to us through the Holy Spirit. And when we hear him speaking to us, that is the point at which we can start to recognise what he sounds like. We can recognise the way in which his voice manifests itself to us. And we can start to be prepared for him telling us what is happening, for him showing us what is happening, so that we can follow, so that we can avoid false teaching, so that we can avoid people trying to drag us off in the wrong direction, and we can follow where it is that God is leading. I was in a discussion recently when I was asked, it was specifically about vision. It was about vision for our church. And I said that whilst I think that having vision is very important, I think it's something that we need to be very wary of. We need to be wary of it because when people get together and formulate a vision for a church, very often that vision is the people's vision. It's not God's vision. So we need more than anything else to actually find out what it is that God is doing, where it is that God is going. We find out where he's dragging each individual person and look for the common thread, because that is where he is taking his church. And we follow where he leads. We don't set the agenda ourselves. We follow his agenda. So that's the thing to think about for today, and I will see you again tomorrow.